Alright, Planeswalkers, let's talk science. Dr. Madison Li is our first ever dedicated energy commander, releasing in the Fallout Commander decks. Note, this is not a precon upgrade guide. Although buying the precon will give you many of the key pieces for this deck, I did not brew this deck list with the precon in mind or as a starting point. This is what I believe to be an optimized energy deck led by Madison Li. If you look at Dr. Li's EDH rec page, you'll see a lot of the old energy cards from Kaladesh populating her page. Do not play these cards in Madison. We may get an energy commander that can make Aether Squall, Ancient, and Lightning Runner work really well, but Madison is not that commander. Dr. Li is already both a great enabler and payoff for energy. We should not need too many more ways to spend our energy other than Dr. Li herself. I promise you that we will generate a lot more energy much more efficiently if we forget all those clunky old energy cards and just fill the list with more artifacts. Now there are a few good energy pieces we will include from Kaladesh, but the important thing about these is that they are also artifacts. Yes, we want as many artifacts as possible. The only non-artifact energy card I did include is Consulate Surveillance, since this is a pretty unique effect, and one that is honestly pretty useful, being able to stop damage triggers or just prevent damage from a Voltron threat. Dr. Li is super flexible. She provides us with haste, card draw, and artifact reanimation at instant speed as long as we have the energy for it. The card draw and reanimation are clearly the strongest of these abilities, so I'm going to lean into those as much as possible. But first, let's talk about how we're going to generate buttloads of energy. Artifacts are one of the easiest card types to spam onto the board and just cast tons of them in one turn. Artifact cost reducers are going to be key to enable making it so we can cast tons of artifacts at a discounted price. Cards like Mystic Forge and the Reality Chip and Joyra are also really powerful enablers. With literally 50 artifacts in this list, these are going to allow us to just repeatedly draw, play, chain together tons of artifacts, and generate us a ton of energy. Lae'zel and Spark Double, copying Madison, will also serve to double up on our energy production anytime we're casting these artifacts. So it's going to get out of hand. If you manage to get both of these on board with your commander, you're going to be making 4 energy per artifact, which is just absolutely nuts. We also have a bunch of other energy generators, mostly out of the precon, but a few from Kaladesh as well, that mostly we want to generate the energy on ETB, which you will see why later. Now that we have a bunch of energy counters, we have to spend them on something useful. Most of the time Madison is going to be using most of our energy herself, but there are a few more payoffs I felt were worthwhile. A few token producers, a big beater, and some value generators fall into this category. But honestly, most of these are here for their energy production capabilities, especially Gonti's Aetherheart. I know an extra turn is really tempting, but the amount of energy this can produce in this list is really astounding. You want to keep this on the battlefield as long as possible and only crack it for that extra turn when you are in a position to win the game. So that means Dr. Li truly is our main energy sink. But I don't know about you guys, but drawing one extra card or reanimating one artifact a turn is pretty uninspiring. I want to be able to activate Dr. Li more than once a turn. Maybe more like 4 times a turn? Of course, for the unwinding clock to untap our commander, we need to turn her into an artifact herself, but we have a few ways to do this. Artifacts naturally synergize extremely well with untapping, as many artifacts have powerful tap abilities. We are also in red, so we of course are running our Goblin Engineer / Welder and Cursed Mirror package to tutor all our important pieces into the yard, to then be reanimated back out. Being in Jeskai also provides us with access to Emery and Oswald to assist in this game plan. The graveyard looping is a big reason why we want our energy generation to trigger on ETB for anything that isn't our commander, so we can continuously generate energy and card advantage while looping these artifacts in and out of the yard. I also threw in Liberator to give all our artifacts flash. This will allow us to utilize the mana rocks that we are untapping with Unwinding Clock, as well as take advantage of Enry untapping each turn, allowing us to flash something in from the graveyard on each player's turn with Emery. Very, very powerful stuff if you can get it all into play. To close out the game, we have the ability to go wide and buff up our large board. We have ways to generate +1/+1 counters, and then proliferation in order to increase those counters while giving us more energy as well. Yes, you can proliferate energy counters. Most of these buffers also synergize with our ability to untap them, allowing us to grow our whole board state by +4/+4 a turn cycle. Then we just take up our buffed up board of robots and smash face. Easy enough. The rest of our card draw comes from artifacts with great ETBs that we can loop with our Goblin Welders, Emery, and Dr. Li herself. Brass's Tunnel Grinder is especially potent in this slot, allowing us to fill our yard and draw cards repeatedly every turn. Even if we never flip this card over to the backside, it is going to provide us with insane amounts of value. We have cards that like to be untapped over and over like Shorikai and Liberty Prime, especially when combined with Unctus, who is capable of turning our non-artifact creatures into artifacts temporarily. We are going to be looting through our library at blinding speeds. All this looping in and out of the graveyard and untapping of our artifacts synergizes especially well with Aetherworks Marvel. It's going to generate us energy anytime we sacrifice a permanent, and then if we are generating as much energy as expected, we will be able to untap it and activate it multiple times a turn cycle, cheating into play our big haymakers like Wormcoil Engine and Cyberman Squadron, which I felt like was a really good win con in this list, since we have so many artifact creatures with great ETBs, and plenty of sack outlets to make use of the temporary token bodies. Once we have drawn and loaded through our deck, we also have Awake the Past, which can return all our artifacts back to the battlefield with haste, allowing us a huge swing to take home the game. For interaction, it's pretty light, but the amount of card draw and deck velocity we have will get us there pretty quickly. Looping the Mightstone and Weakstone or a Contagion Engine is a pretty effective way to reuse our limited amount of interaction as well. This helps mitigate that we don't have too much. We're going to be able to find it easily, and the stuff we do have is repeatable. We do have the Urza to go with our Mightstone, but honestly, I think both of these cards are more effective for us without melding them. So if you wanted to save some money, you could easily replace the Urza with a Foundry Inspector for similar results. For ramp, we are an artifact deck, so of course we just got our mana rocks, and then a cheeky Solemn Simulacrum, because looping this guy in and out of the yard is still amazing, even in 2024 Commander. Check out the full deck list in the description. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like and subscribe to my OnlyLands for the spiciest deck content on the internet. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you next time.